Well, why don't we field a couple of questions if there's any questions from anyone in the audience? They're dying to.
We can't really see. Could the house lights come on?
We're looking by the aisle here.
We can't. I can't see.
I have a question.
Yes. Could we have the house lights up a bit so we can see who's talking to us?
Yeah. Can you bring the house up?
Hello. What's your question?
When you were finding out about flu, did you play the game?
I played the game when I was a kid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Cluedo it was called in England. And I lived in a house, not as ugly as this one, but a house that had, you know, a drawing room, a dining room, a big old-fashioned kitchen like that, a conservatory. I grew up in a house that was pretty much like that. It didn't have secret passages, but it did have, or if they did, I never discovered it. But it did have a big basement like that, and so I was familiar with it. The problem is that, as Graham Greene famously said, character is plot. And what this presented me with, and what John Landis presented me with, was 9 rooms, a bunch of weapons, and a bunch of colors. You know, scarlet, mustard, green, but no character. And it so happened that I knew a lot about McCarthyism and the House Un-American Activities Committee and everything that had gone on here politically in the 50s. Because Rita and I have been friends with a guy called Donald Ogden Stewart. Now, there aren't many people here who know who he was, but you may have seen the film Philadelphia Story with Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant. He wrote that, and he wrote Holiday and Edward My Son and about 75 big Hollywood movies. And he was the first president of the Screenwriters Guild, and he was blacklisted in 1952 and emigrated to London. And we knew him. He lived near us in Hampstead. And we used to go to tea parties at his house, where we met everybody else who'd been blacklisted. Well, not everybody, but we met Waldo Salt, who later wrote Midnight Cowboy, and Ring Lardner, who later wrote MASH, and Chaplin, and a whole lot of people who had been blacklisted. And so we knew I knew the history of that inside out. I knew a bunch of these very funny older people. We were kids, we were in our early 20s, but we knew a whole lot of these people in their 50s and 60s who had been deprived of work throughout the 50s, and who were all very funny and very bitter. And so that was a period of American history I knew about. So I turned to that in desperation when I tried to start looking for a way for a plot and some characters that was more than, you know, some rooms and some colors.
You had a question over there, David?
Yeah, I'm a real fan of the script, and unlike, I know a lot of people here probably saw the movie in the theater, I actually saw it probably on HBO every week for 5 years, because it aired all the time. And I always wondered about the multiple endings. I know that, you know, when the movie was in theaters, each theater got a different ending, different screens, so different endings. Do you think if the movie had been more critically acclaimed or more commercially successful, do you think the idea of multiple endings to movies would have caught on? I never could figure out why more people didn't use this gimmick. More studios didn't do multiple endings on movies.
Oh, I could tell you why. Because what became clear very rapidly is that the audience knew there was ending A at one theater, and ending B at another, and ending C at another. They didn't know which one to go and see, so they didn't go to any of them. It was the worst marketing idea in the history of the cinema. I think also there was a sense that if the filmmakers couldn't make up their minds how the film ended, why the hell should we care? John Landis's original idea had been that if we had 3 endings, people will go 3 times. No, wrong. So no, that's why nobody else ever did it, because it was a calamity. And in fact, you couldn't really appreciate, you know, the endings, because what makes them clever if you can follow them, is that they all make sense. And if you actually, you know, go back over the movie, everything that Wadsworth says in that last 50 minutes is accurate.
So you think the movie works better with all three endings?
Oh, much better.
I agree.
Yeah, much better. That's what we should have done. Yes.
Was the house real or was it a movie set?
It's all movie set. The whole interior is a set. It was built on stage 16, I think it was, at Paramount, which is a very big stage where Alfred Hitchcock filmed Rear Window. The whole of the interior of the house was there, except for the ballroom. The ballroom was a house in Pasadena, and the shot of the house from the roof when the car's pulling up was done also at Pasadena. Everything else, the whole forecourt of the house, outside the house, with the cars and the rain, that was all in the studio, on the set.
And the gargoyles from the beginning, those are the ones that were in your garden?
Yes, Rita and I took the gargoyles home and put them in our garden. And then when we moved to America, my mother said she liked them, so they were in her garden.
Yes.
Me?
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I love the movie and I've seen it many, many times over many years.
Thank you.
Yes, but I was curious about, I always saw the last line of the movie as sort of a triumphant revelation of Mr. Green's heterosexuality. If you had it to do over again, would you keep it the same way in the movie at that line?
I have no idea. I mean, I think at
If you
some
agree.
point in the last 10 minutes, every single idea that the audience has learned to believe is true turns out not to be. That would be one of them. I don't know. Why? Do you think it's offensive?
I think offensive is a strong word. No, I don't think it's offensive, but I always thought it was a little odd that it came out at the same time as sort of his heroism, that he ended up being the hero and I'm straight too.
Yes. That wasn't in my mind.
Okay.
I was just looking for a reversal, just like whether or not the butler has phoned the police, and whether or not, you know, who works for the FBI and who doesn't, and at every point I wanted to reverse assumptions that have been made through the movie. Perhaps today we wouldn't have done that, I don't know. But I have a lot of gay friends and none of them have ever been offended, or if they have, they've never mentioned it.
You know, there's one thing that I don't understand.
What?
I've never been able to figure out, why does J. Edgar Hoover call the house? Like, seriously, what's going on with J. Edgar Hoover? Why is he making phone calls?
That would take too long to explain now, I think. But, you know, it depends which ending you're referring to. There would be 3 different explanations for that question. I'm afraid I can't tell you without referring to the script, because that's a long time ago now. But there were reasons. There are reasons. You've never been able to figure it out? You mean, why would it be Hoover and not somebody else?
Yeah.
Well, because Hoover's got the funny name.
I'll take that. I'll take that. I think we maybe have time for
There's
one more
a
question.
couple more.
I think Jane has a question. I think Jane's a great last question.
It's kind of a simplistic question, but...
Jane, can you speak up?
Yes.
Can't hear you.
Did you ever entertain the thought, or did anyone in the studio ask you to dress the characters in the colors of their names? Because I always thought, I don't know, I know it's a really obvious choice, but did that ever occur to you, or did you think that's too obvious?
Well, no, I especially didn't do that, because it's not their real names, and they've just been designated this name, and they would come in whatever wardrobe they had. That's the way I looked at it. I thought it would be, I felt that would be too predictable, actually.
It worked for Mrs. Peacock, though.
Yes, well, there's an air of a peacock about her, but she's not in peacock blue.
Did you ever think of expanding the role of the Telegram Girl? Expanding Jay's role.
Does she really kill?
No, I never thought of it. I thought she would get practically the biggest laugh of the picture, and she does. So, you know, brevity is the soul of wit, I think somebody said.
I have one other question. Were any of the dead bodies after they were dead, were any of them dummies?
No.
No.
Even when Kelly gets dropped off?
Oh yes, I think when did we drop you on the floor when you were the? I think we probably did. We probably did, but it wasn't a 4-foot drop because there was a sofa there, so there would have been a huge mattress there for him to land on. It would have been about a 2.5-foot drop, which really isn't very much onto a soft landing.
The cook gets demolished.
Kelly's face plant on the floor.
Yeah. No, I don't think anyone was dummies, actually.
Being handled so much. The cook.
Yeah.
Handled so much. I just wondered if she was a, you know.
Who, the cook?
The cook, yeah.
Oh no, that was the cook. Yeah. And in fact, it would have been impossible to do it with a dummy because we had to get her movement pretty precise. She had to land up in exactly the right places, and you know.
Before CGI too.
Before CGI, there was no the letters CGI had not been thought of. Yeah.
Well, what were the criteria to cast the small parts?
What was the
Criteria. How did you know who would be the right driver, who would be the right police officer, who would be the right cook?
You never know, really.
They just remember that one line.
Somebody comes in and you think, oh,
They
they're
have to write for the Go-Go's.
I particularly wanted to cast the man who played the cop because he was actually a jazz singer, and Bill Henderson, and I was a fan. I used to be a jazz musician, and there's a very good album of him singing with Oscar Peterson, and so I just thought, you know, that would be nice to. And Jeffrey Kramer, who played the motorist, was a friend of Deborah Hill's. And
was the cook a physical archetype? Was it someone who needed to
we wanted someone sort of heavy. She didn't have to be Asian, but you know, these were the days when people were becoming aware of the diversity in casting was a good idea. So instead of having all white people, you know, we decided to try and spread it about a bit. So we did specifically look for, you know, an Asian for one of the parts. Or
a busty maid?
Colleen just came into audition and made me laugh so much. She's a very, very funny woman. And no, I wasn't looking for a busty maid. I was looking for someone who made me laugh. You know, that's. I'm hardly ever looking for a particular type. Physical type. I'm always looking for someone with the right sense of humor.
Well, I think you made us all laugh, and we appreciate it.